Hi guys, my name is Vivek, and in this video of Informatica scenarios, we will deal with a scenario where we will load alternate rows into target. So to accomplish this task, we have various approaches, and in this video, as I showed in my previous video, I'll be demonstrating two approaches. The first approach will be using SQL Override, where we'll try to complete the entire task in the source qualifier query itself. And in the second approach, we will discuss if our source table is not a table, rather a flat file, then how we can accomplish the task. So the key takeaway from this video will be the analytical function row number, the case statement in Oracle, the filter transformation in Informatica, and what we will do is we will take this particular scenario a step ahead and we will try to load the alternate rows in two different targets. In that case, while loading in case of a flat file, we will learn the usage of router transformation as well. So let's go ahead and implement this scenario. So I have an employee table where we have certain records. The count of the records of employee table is 107. What I need to do in my first scenario is I need to load the odd number of records into my new table employee ones. That means where the row number is 1, 3, 5, 7 and so forth, I need to load those records into my employee ones table. So that means Stephen, King, Lex, Bruce, Welly, all these records should go into my employee 1 table, and the count of that particular table will be 54. So we will try to accomplish this task using our first approach, which is writing a query which will perform the entire task on its own, and we just have to connect it to the target. So before we do that, let's truncate the employees 1 table so that we can reload it using our source qualifier query from Informatica. So we have the employees table. Okay. Now let's understand the approach using which we will implement this. The first thing that we need to know is we need to know the row number so that we can identify that okay, we want only the odd ones, and how we can do that is by using the mod clause. We can do that if mod of 2 is equals to 1, then we want to select this row. Let's see how we'll do it. So the first thing that we require is we require the row number, and for that we will be using the analytical function row number. So for all those who don't understand analytical function very well, the syntax of analytical function goes like this. First we will specify the function, then we will specify the over, and then partition by is optional, and then we specify the order by. So let's see if it works fine. It worked okay. Let me give it an alias. So if you see, now we have the desired result. Now we have the row number. All we need to do is we need to take the mod clause here and we will get to know our desired result. Okay, we will filter that result and we will use it. So for that we will use the case statement in Oracle. So the syntax of case statement is when you specify your expression, which in this case will be mod of row num comma 2 is equals to 0, then what should be the value? The value should be 0, else 1, end as flag comma e dot star from the inner query. So if you see, this particular e alias belong to the inner query, and this particular alias will belong to the outer query. So from this we can infer that the alias is restricted to the local query. Let's run it and see if we get the desired result. So we got our flag value also. Now all we need to do is we need to fetch the records where the flag is equals to 1. Okay. Now if you see, we'll do that first. So now we call all such records which were our desired output. We got Stephen, Lex, Bruce, Willie, Nancy as we require. Now the work of these two columns, flag and row num, has been accomplished. In our target, we only require these relevant columns. So what I'll do is I'll explicitly select these columns so that I get the clean output in my final query. Let's run it. So we got the correct output. Now all we need to do is we need to put this particular query in our source qualifier and our task is accomplished. So let's create the mapping and perform the final task. We'll name it m_demo_alternate records. Let's get the source definition and target definition quickly. Now all we need to do is we need to override the source qualifier query, connect it to target, and our work is done. So we have created the mapping already. Let's quickly generate the workflow. The workflow has also been created. Let's open the workflow designer to run the workflow, and meanwhile let's verify that we had created our employee1 table so that we can reload it accordingly. The count is 0. Let's go back and let's run it in the workflow manager. So the cool part with this approach is that we filtered the entire record in the source qualifier itself, and we have to use minimum of mapping, minimum of transformation, I mean. So let's run the workflow. The name of the workflow is m_demo alternate record. Let's run it. So the workflow is running. So ideally it should load 54 records. Let's see. So the records have been loaded. So if you see from the source qualifier query itself, only 54 records were picked. In our second approach, where we don't have the liberty to override with the source qualifier query, we will see that we will have to access all the 107 records. Let's go ahead and work on our second approach, where we will say that our source is not a table, rather a flat file. Let's see in that case how we can accomplish the task. So we will create a new mapping and we will call it m_demo flat file alternate record. So let me quickly get our target and source. So we'll assume this is a flat file and we don't have the liberty for SQL override. So what we will do is we will use an expression transformation and a sequence generator transformation. Let's put all the value to expression transformation and let's get the next val value from sequence generator to the expression transformation. Value is there. Now we will create an output port and we will name it as flag. Okay. Now the value of this port will be, similarly we will use the mod clause here. Mod of next val will be the value. Let's validate it. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed the 2. Okay, this should be integer because it will return 0 or 1. Now we need to filter our records. We'll use the filter transformation. And on the basis of flag we will specify the condition. So in filter transformation, apart from the ports, you have to specify which record should be filtered, and for that you need to specify the condition in filter. So here if you see, we specified where flag is equals to 1. So similarly here also we will give flag is equals to 1. Let's validate. The expression has been passed and let's connect it to our target. The entire thing is valid. Let's generate the workflow. The reusable session. The workflow name is workflow m demo flat file alternate record. The workflow has been generated. Let's quickly open it and let's truncate our table because we have to reload it with our second approach now. Let's run the workflow. The workflow is running. So if you see, there are striking similarities in the two approaches. In both the approaches you used the mod thing. In both the approaches you filtered. In the source qualifier query you used the where thing. Here you use the filter transformation, which works exactly the same as the where clause, and the same number of records have been loaded using this also. So if you see, using this also we loaded 54 records, and using this also we loaded 54 records. And as I mentioned earlier, here we need to process all the 107 records, though we required only the 54 records. So that is one challenge with this particular flat file thing, that the performance will relatively take a hit because it has to process more number of records. Okay, let's go ahead and tweak our scenario even a little more. Okay, and in this case what we will do is we will try to load the alternate records in two different targets. So right now we had filtered the records where the flag was equals to 0. Now we will load those records into a different employee table, employee 2. Let's see how we can do that. So let's go back to our mapping and change it. We'll be first dealing with the second approach and we'll see how it can be done. Okay. So till here it will be similar. The only thing that will change is that instead of filter we will use our router here. So let me remove this thing. So now here we will use a router. So let me quickly put the ports. So we have the ports here. Now we need to create two groups. So if you remember there we had a filter condition, here we have groups. So I'll create new group where we need to load into employees 1. Here the condition of flag will be when flag is equals to 1, load into employees 1. And instead of filtering the records like we did previously, we will have a group here, employees 2, which will load when flag is equals to 0. Let's validate it. Now from the first group we can load into employee 1, but from the second group we need another target which will be employee 2. So let's quickly get the target. Now we just need to attach these values to employee 1. And the second group that we have created, employees 2, let's attach it to our new table which is employees 2. So by default router transformation also create a default group, and if your condition doesn't specify or doesn't match any of the two groups, it goes into the default group. But here both our conditions have matched. So let's go ahead and refresh the workflow also. Let's validate. So let me just quickly close and reconnect. Let's save it. The workflow is valid. Let's save it. Before we go ahead, let's truncate the table employees 1 which was loaded last time. It has been truncated. Let's run the workflow and see if those 107 records will be distributed among employees 1 or employee 2 or not, which is the expected result. So it has succeeded. So if you see, employees 2 got 54 records and employee 1 got 53 records, which was our expected thing. So we have divided the records as per our requirements in the two target, the alternate records. Let's see if we can implement the same scenario using our first approach, which was using the source qualifier override query. So let's go back to our designer again and let's try to tweak the other query. So this was our second thing. Now here what we need to do is, let's see how we can modify it. So if you see earlier, what we were doing is we were removing the records altogether where flag was equals to 0. Okay, so first of all we need both the records, so we will remove this condition. Okay, and the other thing that what we need to do is we will have to carry forward the flag column also, because we will have to push it to router condition now, so that we can redirect it to the two outputs like the way we did in the other transformation. Have made any mistake? Let me quickly check. So we got the flag here. Okay, now we need to carry forward both the records and we need to push it to the router. If you see the resemblance between two approaches, in both the approaches we required a sequence generator. In Oracle we used row number, while in Informatica we used the sequence generator transformation. And to calculate the flag, there we use the expression transformation and we use the same mod clause. Here also we use the same mod clause, but we did it using case. Okay, so let's modify our source qualifier query and put it there, and we will use the same router condition as we did it in the other thing. Now that we have added a new column flag, we will have to add it here also at the very first location. We will make it, say, let's say double, and since we have added a new port in our source qualifier, we cannot leave it unconnected because it will be assigned a value. So let's assign it a random port flag. It doesn't matter as long as the data type is same, it doesn't matter what you are attaching. Okay, now instead of connecting it directly, we will have to use a router transformation as we did it on our other scenario. So let's quickly add a router. Let's get all these ports quickly, and let's create our groups. The two condition. Let's apply this, and let's drag our new targets employee tree and assign the values. So from the first group we will assign the values to employee 1, and from second group we will assign the values to employee 2. That is done. The mapping is valid. Let's quickly refresh and validate our session, which was the session is valid. Let's save it. Let's truncate our table one more time, which we have loaded them. Table has been truncated. The second table also. Let's run this session. So if you see, it should load similarly 54 and 53 records the way it loaded for the other thing. And in this case we had to access all the 107 records. So it entirely depends upon your use case that what approach you want to use. Let's see if everything was fine. So everything went fine. We loaded the correct number of records. So it entirely depends upon your use case, that how you want to perform the operation or which approach you want to use. There can be other approaches also using which you can accomplish the same task. It entirely depends upon your use case, and you should always consider the performance and scalability, that in case if there is any change, then how you can do it. Okay. So the key takeaway, let's go back and see if we learned what we discussed. So we have learned the usage of analytical function, the case statement, the filter transformation, and the router transformation. Thanks a lot guys for watching this video. Please subscribe to my channel for more such informative videos. And in case if you have any scenario in your mind on which you want an explanation, please leave a comment and I'll make a video on that particular scenario. Thanks a lot.